Welcome to Breaking Barriers with R&D, your direct line to Randy Dowdy and David Hula, here to help fellow farmers unlock the potential in their fields. Are you looking to implement best practices that maximize ROI? You've come to the right place. Real value, real yield, real ROI. Breaking Barriers with R&D starts now. Breaking Barriers is brought to you by Pioneer Brand. Vorseed Enlist corn outyields the competition by 7.1 bushels per acre, thanks to elite genetics, industry-leading traits, and herbicide flexibility. Plant Vorseed Enlist corn in the 100th year of Pioneer and plant your best year yet. By Calmer Cornheads, home of the world's only all-weather stalk roll. Learn more at calmercornheads.com. By exclusive varieties from Zavato soybean seed. Change the seed, change the game. Learn more at zavatosoybeanseed.com. And by Golden Harvest. At Golden Harvest, the bag is just the start. We combine trusted local agronomic expertise with data-driven innovations like the Golden Harvest Experience, GHX, to deliver tailored solutions built for your acres. To learn more, visit goldenharvestseeds.com.
Well, welcome to another episode of Breaking Barriers with R&D. Randy, it is always a pleasure to have you on, and I'm kind of excited about the guest we're going to have a little bit and introduce her in a few minutes. But I think before we started filming, I think you said you were pulling into the Chick-fil-A parking lot. Just be ready for when we're done. So I appreciate you not drinking Chick-fil-A when we get started. Thanks.
You're welcome. No problem. I try not to. I know you probably haven't made it out of the house. You probably just rolled out of the bed. I know it's early in Virginia, so I'm kidding. If anybody I know's up at the crack of dawn or before is David Hula. He's an early riser for sure.
Well,
David, it is good to be with you.
I was first in line to vote this morning, buddy. So I was early, and so it was myself, Billy, one of the guys working with us, and Chris, another guy that works with us. We were the first three in line. And when we got done, we went to the convenience store, had some breakfast, and I said, "Did y'all pass the test this morning?" And they looked at me like I'd bumped my head. So,
well, there's one thing about it. It's hard to complain if you don't at least cast your vote. So,
yeah,
there's a pile of folks. There's a pile of folks that like to take and voice their opinions, but they don't ever get out and cast. So I lose a lot of respect for that. So
yeah. Well, Dowdy, today we're filming our 15th episode, or we've had 15, so this will be our 16th episode. And we've only been able to do that with a lot of our sponsor support. And Syngenta's been a sponsor for the whole time BASF has been. And we had some good time with Mary Calmer. But today, we're going to have Pioneer there. And, I think about the 15th episode we filmed, and I think about what Pioneer is celebrating their 100th year anniversary next year. And, when I look back at the legacy, you think of Henry Wallace. Do you think when he started the hybrids, do you think that we'd be where we are today?
Well, it's pretty remarkable that, I've made some pretty good yields with Pioneer. I know you have a long-standing history with Pioneer, and there's no doubt about it. I mean, who would have ever thought that yield potential would be as great as it is? But even a national average of 180 bushels or whatever it's going to be, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, we do a great job of feeding the world and supplying end users, et cetera. So it is pretty remarkable that corn and or soybeans. I mean, they don't just sell corn; they do sell soybeans. And I'm sure there's some wheat seed or something out there, it's like grain sorghum or something else. But when I think of Pioneer, I think of David Hula and corn. So that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, Henry Wallace, when he got started doing the hybrids and stuff, and then when I remember being in school and we got to talking about yield potentials, oftentimes people would say, well, the yield potential corn is 500 bushels. I'll just go ahead and get this out, Dowdy, because you were the first one to break 500. And who would have thought, 500? I mean, that was a huge milestone. Herman Warsaw broke 300, and then you had Francis Shiles doing 400, and Randy Dowdy doing 500.
And
And
David
so
Hula breaking 6.
well, I won't going to say that, but it's all about the potential of what the growers have been doing. And, in doing so, I think about things that you've been doing, because you're a first generation farmer. And then you got started with, next level, now Total Acre, and things that we were doing here at Renwood, and me being part of the Total Acre program now too. It's just neat to see what growers themselves are doing. It's not just the companies, but it's the technologies. We got all these bells and whistles on the John Deere equipment or whatever other equipment people are running, but what they're doing on the ground to make us get to these yield levels is just tremendous. And then the genetics got to be a big play, obviously.
Absolutely. And, there's a lot of people, David, that are entrenched in doing things the way they've always done. Uh, Daddy did it this way, Grandpa did it this way. And sometimes, David, it's hard to break out of that mold. One thing that we have done with Total Acre is I think we've attracted a lot of early adopters and innovators and like-minded people that want to believe that they can do better, and there's things that are limiting factors that they want to learn, and they bring a lot of IP, intellectual property, sweat equity to the group. But at the end of the day, you've said it for a long time. You surround yourself with a good team, good people, and there's no doubt about it in my mind that the good Lord has to bless us all. But there's a lot of sweat equity and work that goes into making these high yields, and technology helps, equipment helps, advancements in crop protection helps, and genetics helps. But the farmers should get a lot of credit too, because at the end of the day, they got to execute. And then the final kiss is, when the good Lord blesses it. I mean, there's no doubt about it. People think because people have irrigation, they've got a distinct advantage. There's been times I wish it didn't rain, and I could just water it myself, as you well know. There's been irrigation doesn't just always make the difference, but when you need it, you need it. When it's the limiting factor, by far, it's the best tool out there to try to be able to minimize some of the stresses that we're in control. But there are so many things that the weather controls, and I know you know them because of named storms and cloudy days and just living on the East Coast. I mean, high nighttime temperatures. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and so the good Lord has to bless us too. But your feet of 600 plus bushels multiple times, I mean, that's a big deal. And to have a company like Pioneer here today to talk about some of what's coming in the future, that's a big deal, and I always enjoy learning as well.
Yeah, well, I agree with everything you said there. And I know growers, we all struggle. We always have something that seems to have held us back. And one thing that I've seen you do, and I know we do, we don't blame the weather. We try to understand the weather and we work around it. And growers over time have been adapting. And, you mentioned people oftentimes just continue to do the same thing, the old insanity method. It's neat to see growers that have made some subtle changes, and then all of a sudden they're harvesting the best crops they've ever had. And while we were doing the Pro Farmer Crop Tour, I mean, we were seeing some tremendous corn out there where it's like, this country average could be good. And then we know what happened to the crop, part of the crop after. And unfortunately, they just didn't finish the crop.
We're number one! We're number one!
The Pioneer brand 4-seed Endless Corn Team beat DeKalb Smart Stacks and VT4 Pro.
They scored a 7.1 bushels per acre average yield advantage across more than 24,000 comparisons.
They're coming this way.
Woo! We crushed corn rootworm!
How'd you guys do it?
3 modes of action, baby!
How'd you clobber those weeds?
Herbicide flexibility, yeah!
Another winning season.
Plant the 100th season of Pioneer. Visit pioneer.com/rootworm.
With corn rootworm costing farmers up to $1 billion a year, you need the right strategy. Introducing Durastack trait technology, featuring 3 powerful modes of action to strike corn rootworm at full force, outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch their every move with the industry's first triple BT protein stack built for corn rootworm control. Take back your yield potential. Make your move at Durastack.com. Available for the 2027 season.
A season is full of numbers. 21 days scouting fields. 168 hours in the cab. 540 cups of coffee consumed. At Golden Harvest, we know your most important number doesn't just happen. Every result is built by putting in the work and making the right calls with a partner who knows your acres. See how it all adds up beyond the bushels at goldenharvestseeds.com/harvest.
You can't do the same thing and expect different results. So here's some advice. Change the seed and you'll change the game. Zitavo soybean seed is the seed you've always wanted. It's been tested again and again, going through at least 12 quality control protocols because 11 wasn't enough. All to ensure that you get consistent performance from every seed that can pay off with better soybean yield. Zitavo soybean seed is ready to raise the bar for soybeans. Are you? Learn more at xitavosoybeanseed.com. Always read and follow label directions.
But it's always exciting to have a guest on our program, Dowdy, and I would take a chance to introduce Mary Gumz from Pioneer.
Good morning, Randy. Good morning, David. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Well, good morning.
And, like I said at the beginning, here we are, we're doing their 16th or filming their 16th episode, and we're talking to somebody now that is celebrating their 100th year anniversary in 2026. And things always seem to come back. I remember when it was just Pioneer, and then it went to Pioneer and DuPont, then it was Pioneer, DuPont Dow, then Corteva. And Miss Mary, what are we now?
Well, right now we're still Corteva through 2026. We're going to be separating into two companies, new Corteva, which is going to focus on crop protection, and then a seed company that's going to focus on seed. And I'm really excited about that because the two I started back in the DuPont days, and it's been exciting seeing us become Corteva. I think it was one of those mergers where we genuinely took the best of both companies. And now this company has grown, and now we're big enough to kind of break into two companies and be really successful. So I think it's going to be a pretty exciting year.
Well, I'm excited to be part of that. I know we did some filming and we're seeing some stuff, like Dowdy mentioned earlier, part of our biggest successes have been about the team that we've surrounded ourselves with. And, not only working with our local Pioneer folks, we also had a chance to work with some regionals and some nationals. And just that relationship. And, I oftentimes share a farmer's hand to success and talk about digits on one's hand. And the ring finger so fits well with seed purchases because it is all about relationships. And when you have that relationship and you got a lot of trust there, there's no telling where you can end up. Now, sometimes we have failures. Not everything's a home run. Not everything's a hit. But we learn, we pick ourselves up, and we continue to move forward. So I'm excited. And, one of the things that we're able to do is partnership with Pioneer, and, we do an impact trial. So, so that's kind of neat. We see what's been going on. We see some of the new stuff, and, not to say we have any say in it, but it's kind of neat to see what's coming about. And that's been exciting. Today we'll talk about some of those things, maybe not some of the products, but we're talking about some of the technologies. So welcome.
Thank you.
So give us a little history of yourself, because you and I think we might have crossed paths at distance, but we haven't spent much time together. So give me a little history on yourself, Miss Mary.
Sure. Well, I am from northern Wisconsin originally. I didn't grow up on a farm or anything. My grandparents farmed out in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and we used to visit them. But honestly, they were retired by then, and I was pretty little when I went out on the farm. But I think that might have planted a seed, pun intended there. I went to school at University of Minnesota, was kind of undecided as to a major, and I was talking to somebody about my interests, that I was interested in plants more than animals, wanted to do something in biology. I liked being outside. And he said, why don't you try an agronomy class? And I took an agronomy class, and it was the most interesting thing that I had ever studied. So I ended up as an agronomy major. graduated, took my first job with SEBA back in the day in Northwest Indiana. And when I came down here, I met my husband, who farms in Northwest Indiana, and got married, went back to grad school at Purdue and got my master's and PhD in weed science. And I always figured I'd be kind of a hardcore weed scientist. And I ended up starting to work for Pioneer in 2008, and really, really love the seed side. It's been such a good fit, and I've I've stayed in the same place with Pioneer. I've always been centered in Northwest Indiana, and my territory has kind of moved around me. I started as an area agronomist, and then I was a product agronomist that I loved walking impact plots. That was the best part of my job. And then I took the role of agronomy manager for the East in 2017. And that role has evolved now too. And now I'm the agronomy innovation leader. And I work a lot with my team of agronomy innovation managers who support our field agronomists. And then we work a lot with our digital technologies and basically all of the new innovations that we have coming, things like fungicide timing, when it comes reduced statured corn, hybrid wheat, things like that. So it's been a fun time at Pioneer. I really love working here.
Well, you hit a couple things that I know we want to talk about, and one of the last topics, not the reduced stature or the hybrid wheats. We might cover some of that a little later, but I know growers are just wrapping up harvest. You know, some of the
Yeah.
Midwest, we finished their corn. We're still maybe 400 some acres of beans left to go. Most of them are your replenish and list soybeans.
Oh,
So,
great.
so we're anxious to get into the rest of those. But while Daddy and I were doing the Pro Farmer Crop Tour, you know, we were seeing some tremendous. And then all of a sudden, you know, we're out there scouting, and we're from the South. Dowdy's clearly further south than I am, but identifying some southern rust out there. And you mentioned fungicides. Guys were spending money, and it was so evident. We're trying to get them to go one more time. So what you being, you know, involved with it, you know, you're from uh the north, so southern rust really hadn't been a big thing for y'all. So it probably, not say it caught you by surprise as well, but you know, what are y'all thinking? Not only how they should have finished this year, but what strategies might y'all be looking at for the future?
Right. Well, yeah, Southern Rust, I mean, with our local team, we had a lot of webinars about what is Southern Rust and why should you be worried about this? This is common rust's nasty cousin. Because you normally don't see it this far north, and we actually saw it all the way up to Green Bay, Wisconsin this year. So we were having a lot of calls about this, and like I said, I work a lot with our fungicide timing program, which predicts based on the weather and the hybrid, when disease is going to occur, so that you can spray before you can actually see disease lesions. But that is really right now it's focused on northern leaf blight and gray leaf spot. So southern rust is something that we just had to kind of go by ear. And okay, maybe you've already sprayed once, Mr. Farmer, but you've got these southern rust lesions coming in. And if you don't do something in 2 weeks, your crop is going to be dead, because that is how fast it is moving up the leaf and destroying the leaf, and you're not going to be able to photosynthesize and put any more starch in those kernels. So we were recommending spraying quite a bit, and it was a very different situation than we were normally in. And southern rust is interesting too, because we don't know if we're going to get it next year, but we know we have to be prepared for it because our weather pattern might bring it up here again. So it's one of those things that you don't always need to treat for it, but if it comes, you better be ready to treat it with everything you've got.
I agree 100%. We deal with it, Miss Mary, every year. It's not a matter of if we're going to get it, but when are we going to get it, and how many times will we have to spray?
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and clear up a few things for the listener. We have seen yields as late as Dent be affected by 60 bushels in the South. 60.
Most.
Moving in as late as dent with, in theory, 21 to 28 days, depending on heat accumulation, of growing left to do and starch accumulation left to do. And we've seen a 60 bushel response in the South by spraying a fungicide that late versus not. So if it comes in, you said the right words, you better throw everything you have at it. And there's several out there that do pretty well on curative and preventative, but it's just like you said, you get about 2 to 3 weeks worth of efficacy. There is not today that I'm aware of a fungicide that you can spray at tassel and make it 50, 60 days later and make it the black layer. A lot of people time fungicides around, obviously, that 1300 or tassel or pollination time frame. But when they expect that to give them the remaining of the season long control, that is just a mistake. It's a different animal than gray leaf spot. It's a different animal than tar spot. It's a different animal than, the common rust. It might be its cousin, but it's on steroids. And I can just tell you, if you have moisture, which makes grain, and you have humidity, which we need heat to accumulate and often, and you have a population that, is 30 plus thousand, I promise you it's going to explode and it's going to, just feed off of that environment. So people need to take it seriously. And David and I was on a tour and we wanted to throw chairs like Bobby Knight at the Indiana basketball games when different representatives would make statements like, well, now you need to be prepared for next year. No, you don't. You better react now. And I think it was just the fact that they just didn't know a lot about that disease. And unfortunately, I am that resident PhD in the South with that disease. It's bad. And it will take your crops by far faster than anything I've ever seen. So,
Mary, now we got the southern rust, we deal with tar spot, or we don't. I mean, the Midwest does. That's a big residue play. That's going to be something where southern rust is going to blow in. Tar spot is there once you have it. And, I'll during the Total Acre events, we'll do the summer tours. And I got a pair of boots that I'll wear during the summer tour, but I don't take them out of the garage when I get home because tar spot or white mold or something like that, it's not going to happen at Ringwood Farms first.
Yeah.
So that's been a big fear. So, strategies, seemed like y'all have had a leading edge on tar spot, maybe in the genetics. So, because southern rust's not always a play, tar spot, and it's going to be there.
Yeah. A little trivia point. One of the first places we found tar spot in Indiana in 2015 was one of my impact plots. And I had 2 impact cooperators. They're brothers that just super, super people to work with. And we were out there looking at tar spot lesions. And of course, we're all agronomists saying, this is so cool. We've got to call Johnston and get a pathologist out here. And one of the brothers reminded me, if you guys could be a little bit less enthusiastic about that, I'd really appreciate it. But they really worked with us and let us get some really good observations. And I think he said it well, that the first thing you need to do is plan for it with your hybrid selection. And we've had an edge in our germplasm with tar spot tolerance. I think because we select a lot for late season plant health, we've probably inadvertently selected for some of the genes that give tolerance to tar spot. So starting off with a good hybrid is the first thing. And then scouting and kind of not overreacting too fast. I think the last 2 years we've had tar spot lesions visible like early June, like that first week of June. And that's kind of more of a curiosity thing. It's you need to wait until closer to tassel when that disease is actually accumulating enough inoculum out there that it can start getting lesions on the plant, and you want to prevent it from getting any farther, but you don't want to go too ridiculously early on it. The other thing we've noticed with tar spot is that if you have any other stress on the crop during grain fill, it seems like tar spot will just speed that up. So if your crop isn't doing super well, like we had in Wisconsin a couple of years ago, where we turned hot and dry during grain fill, we had some premature death, we had started a little too wet, and that tar spot came in and just made everything worse. So yeah, you need to be prepared to spray at the right time for tar spot, but good genetics can get you a long way there.
Well, like I said, we don't deal with it, but working with the growers, I got some friends up in Michigan, the Drodes, and they talk about preventative. Let's try to make sure we don't have it because there's not a whole lot you can do it once you have it. So
Right, right.
the lesions, it's been infected for a long period of time. So the preventative seems to be good, along with hybrid selection. So I want that disease to stay north. I know that Andy, I think they found some, maybe not this past year, but they have found some in Georgia and Florida, have they not?
100%. We've seen it in Georgia, but I've heard of it being in South Florida. So it's not like we're just going to add it to the list of things we have to try to combat. We're in the prevent play of all of it. I mean, if we see disease, this costs us a certain amount of yield or potential, because it's just hard to scout every acre. And, with our humidity and our constant every day of 50 to 60% chance of rain every day, and high nighttime temperatures, et cetera, for us, it is a prevent play. It's not uncommon, David, for us to have a fungicide, V10 come back at R1, come back 3 weeks later, and then 3 weeks after that. So we factor 2 to 4 fungicides in our budget every year, just because of the fact that it's not a matter of if we're going to get disease, but how bad will it be and how many bushels can we afford to give up? If it turns off hot and dry and it's not raining, we might get by with removing one of those fungicides, but I don't know any competent grower here that doesn't factor a minimum of 2 plus fungicide applications. So that prevent play, as you referenced, the Drodes and the different ones in the group that are taking for the tar spot is usual and customary in the South. That's just something we do.
I had mentioned that I work a lot with our fungicide timing tool. And this year especially, we were getting some early, what for us is early fungicide calls, that V10, V12 time frame, and we got some pushback about, should I really be spraying this early? And these were fields where we had a plot out where we did that fungicide timing, prescribed timing versus what was planned just from visual scouting. And we're getting some big yield increases. And also you could visually just see the difference between those plants that we did do that early call on compared to a usual at tassel timing.
Well, that goes along with what Randy said earlier on in the show at the beginning. Farmers don't usually like to change. They do that same thing. And, you're asking them to make a change because the information is telling them to. Well, until it's to put trust in that information, it is hard. And that's where that relationship factor and that team building comes into play, Miss Mary.
Yep, absolutely. And these are guys who are good farmers. I mean, they know what they're doing. They're out there scouting, and it's like, this is a new way of doing this that, hey, we can get you 5 to 7 days before you can even see that lesion to get your fungicide out there. So yeah, it's a new way of looking at things.
Well, David and Miss Mary, there's no doubt about it. If you just think about all fungicides, coverage is key.
Yep.
And, you got drones in the equation now. You have people talking about doing it with a ground rig. The airplane or helicopters have been traditional for a long time. You got people that think about chemigation where they have pivots. Coverage is key.
Yep.
Period. You
Mhm.
got to have enough water and you got to have enough coverage on the leaves for it to do its job. And there is no better time if people are going to step outside of their comfort zone. Most people have the ability to go out there with a ground rig at V10 to V12, get across the top of that crop, cover that plant predominantly from top to bottom. If you're out there with a ground rig, they're used to spraying 10 to 12, 15 gallons, 20 gallons an acre with a ground rig. It's a no-brainer. Get coverage on it. Protect that ear leaf because it will be in the whirl. It will be either exposed collar or in the whirl, depending on when the hybrid and the season and all of that. Protect that ear leaf. Get coverage, and it's a no-brainer for sure. David and I have been preaching that forever with Total Acre. I'm glad that your tool is actually, I guess, confirming what we've been talking about for a long time. That's nothing new for us, but it's about plant health. And if you can get coverage on it and get across it with some ground rigs that you may own, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Well, Dowdy, you mentioned coverage and water, and my thing goes to good water. So not all water is the same. As growers, they need to get with the uh, manufacturer of fungicide and understand what type of water they need to be applying, and whether it's pH, do they have chlorine in it? What do they need to do to make sure they're getting the full efficacy of that fungicide? And when we had Kim on talking about fungicides, that was one thing that she talked about several episodes ago, Ms. Mary.
Okay.
So we've been talking about, I guess I want to say negative things, the guys having to spend money, and
Mhm.
Dowdy said you can't afford to scout all your fields just because of timing and labor. You being part of the impact plots for your career, I imagine, with Pioneer.
Mhm.
What new and exciting? What are y'all seeing? Because the farmers, we typically want to do the same thing and over again. We want more bushels, but we ask Pioneer, or give me a new hybrid to give me more bushels. So what do y'all have from yields to disease to insect protection? What's going on?
So a lot of really cool stuff coming through. I mean, obviously, yield is kind of the first, second, and third thing that we're looking for. What we're starting to see more and more of is how that plant makes that yield. That we've got hybrids that are they're better emergers. You've got that much more even emergence. I remember when I first started with Pioneer back in 2008. That was something we identified in a few key hybrids that, hey, we're not getting the uniform emergence we need to get, and went back to our breeders, and that was something that really improved. And then setting up that those good stands, and then really keeping the plant healthy through late into the season. And just the longer you can keep that plant healthy, handling stress and packing starch into those kernels, the better your yield. So that's really, I think, where we're getting a lot of our yield increases from, that improved plant health. Um, Excited about some of the new traits that we have. The boar seed trait, which gives us rootworm protection, power core and list, which is giving us above ground insect protection. There's a lot going on there. Also with looking at plants that are more water efficient. As we've looked at our nutrient removal rates, we take out less per bushel than we used to. Our hybrids are more efficient at using nitrogen and other nutrients, and just seeing how we can make more grain on that same plant. I think that we've got some really exciting stuff coming up.
Well, you mentioned a whole bunch, and one of the things you talked about, water efficiency. My mind initially went to Jeff Schlussler I don't know. I'm sure you work with him, and he
Yep.
was.
Yep.
And Dowdy and I both had a chance to visit with him, and he helped me get past the yield barrier just so with some techniques and create a little bit of work for me. But the very first thing you said was, I think about the older hybrids and, go much further back, but, 3379 is the first hybrid that sticks in my mind. And then we had, 3394 and 1197 and 14830, just things were getting better and better. Um, but the foundation starts after the planters left the field and that emergence.
Right.
What do you talk about, Dowdy, when you think about planting a corn crop? Is emergence not one of the first things that you think about?
Well, I guess one of my old sayings is you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. Emergence is paramount. Emergence uniformity is relative. A lot of people like to score it different ways, and I'd love to talk to Miss Mary about those things privately for sure, about emergent scores and maybe some things that they could include that would be beneficial. I know at my level, and a lot of growers, if we start educating them, would probably be asking the right questions going forward too. But emergence uniformity, where all plants are up simultaneously within a certain GDU mark, and not all hybrids are created equal. They all have vigor differences for sure. And to me, that should play a big role in how growers select products. They select products today based off of if they're checking, quality of seed, saturated cold germ scores, paracarp scores. They take some of those things into consideration for sure. And I wish the seed company, by the way, would put those scores on a seed label. Hint, hint, hint. But it would be very nice if the seed company would start telling us, you give us the score that, hey, this has good emergence. What I would rather know is how many GDUs at a 2-inch planting depth do we have is spiking through the ground? That tells me what I need to know, because if one hybrid takes 75 GDUs to emerge at the same planting depth as another hybrid that takes 125 GDUs to emerge, that's a big deal for me. And there are differences for sure. And having the ability to know that when a forecast that we don't get right often with the meteorologists that we trust, knowing how many GDUs will be accumulated 4 to 5 days after planting is a big deal. And how long that seed may sit in the ground before that plant emerges, and not burn up a lot of seed energy. That's a big deal. And so emergent scores, I'd love to visit about that at some point for sure. But emergent scores are a big deal. And David, you said it. 9 times out of 10, every time we've been affiliated with fields where you and I would help draw a crowd and things would be pitched that high yielding growers are having competitions and everything else. What do I always tell you, David? Yeah. Without fail, whoever's got the most uniform emerge stand wins. Everything else we did after the fact is going to go back to who had the most plants that uniformly emerged that could respond to those treatments that we did after the fact. And that's where that whole lipstick on a pig. You got to have the first box checked. That first box checked has to be simultaneous emergence. Once you get that, David, now the first box is checked, and hey, now let's go spend some money. Now this is when we start trying a lot of things like fungicides and crop protection and biologicals and nutrient applications and things like that to really take us to the next level. No pun intended.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, Randy. I know if I could have walked into your fields where you had those high yields, I know it had to come up. And I remember you telling me, David, if I can get this field planted and we get some rain to knock these clods out and it comes up uniform, watch out. Then the next thing I get is a video at harvest and the crop is green, and I'm ready to throw my phone down because I know he done something really good. Ms. Mary,
we talking green at 24-25% moisture corn, and it's green 2 leaves below the ear up. And I mean, the combine needs to kill the plant. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, because Mary, you mentioned it, keeping the plant, and I know you said that maybe part of y'all's tar spot tolerance or resistance, however you want to classify it,
Mhm.
from y'all looking at the stay green and the plant health. And that's things when I think about as a grower selecting a hybrid, because what are farmers doing right now? They're y'all try to push us buying seed early and earlier every
Yeah.
they're like, hey David, if you don't hurry up and open up this impact plot, it's going to be too late for us to use the data. We get it opened up, but as a grower, some of the things you said, yield, 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 yield. Well, I'm in the same boat as Dowdy is. We want yield, but it's got to stand. If it
Right.
doesn't, it doesn't matter.
Well, I'm glad you touching that, David, because she says 1, 2, and 3 was yield, yield, yield. David, for me, I'm exactly the opposite. It don't matter if it makes 500 bushels. If it's on the dirt, I ain't gonna get it all, and I'm mad the whole harvest season. Standability and being able to sell the grain we harvest is number 1 and 2. We can make all hybrid yield, but standability for me is number 1, and grain quality would be a close second. And then, the subtle differences amongst hybrids. I think there's a lot of performance out there that we're not captured.
When you think about down corn, the corn's laying on the ground, how are you going to get it up? For us, one of the first things we want to do is level the head out. Typically we're running at that 24, 26 degree angle. We probably want to get it down to that 20 degree angle just so we can slide up underneath. If you got any of the ear savers or anything like that, you want to let them down. Now, we don't run augers. I can see an advantage to an auger, so any corn that gets over is not bridging up here, but if we lower that angle down, any of the corn that we go over is just going to slide over. That's the first thing that I would be doing. The next thing that I would think about is we're going to look at the deck plates. We're going to go over to one of the rows here that I can pull up. And let me raise this row unit up. Now there are certain things that growers, we got adjustable deck plates. So these deck plates can squeeze in and squeeze out. If you notice right now, it's a little bit wider here, the front, and a little bit narrower in the back. That's typically how we want to run it, because as the corn's going in, the ears are hit and then they'll go into the auger. When we have lodged corn, we want to do just the opposite. We want to narrow the front just a little bit up and then widen the back out so we keep the flow, because the idea is we don't want to spend any energy to pull that corn up. If you notice the gathering chains on the John Deere, they're staggered. If you get into lodged corn, you want to put the gathering teeth chains side by side, because what they'll do then is they'll grab that corn and then pull it in. If I've heard some farmers, I have even tried it on some of their taller corn that lodges, we'll just take the chains off, swap them over, so the edges are what's going to grab the corn.
What a win!
That's how you finish a season.
Pioneer brand 4-seed Enlist corn dominated DeKalb Smart Stacks and VT4 Pro.
An average 7.1 bushels per acre yield advantage across more than 24,000 comparisons.
Plus, all that corn rootworm protection and herbicide flexibility.
That's a dream team.
That's Pioneer brand 4-seed Enlist corn. In it to win it.
Plant the 100th season of Pioneer. Visit pioneer.com/rootworm.
Are you struggling with messy field residue? Calmer has the solution to take your harvest to the next level. Calmer BT Chopper stalk rolls cut, chop, and shear corn stalks into confetti-like pieces, resulting in faster residue decomposition, easier planting, and higher yields. You can upgrade your current OEM corn head with Calmer's entire corn head upgrade kit. Calmer also builds fully customizable corn heads that are compatible with any combine and come equipped with our entire line of patented residue management parts. If you order by December 31st, 2025, you'll receive free header height on your new head, a $4,000 savings. If you're fighting rotor loss and finding unthreshed pods in your grain tank, Calmer's newest product, the High Performance Concave Upgrade Kit, can help. Using Calmer's patented inserts and cover plates, you can switch between corn, soybeans, or small grains efficiently without changing the concaves. Call us at 309-629-9000 or visit calmercornheads.com to learn more.
You can't do the same thing and expect different results. So here's some advice. Change the seed and you'll change the game. Zitavo soybean seed is the seed you've always wanted. It's been tested again and again, going through at least 12 quality control protocols because 11 wasn't enough. All to ensure that you get consistent performance from every seed that can pay off with better soybean yield. Zitavo soybean seed is ready to raise the bar for soybeans. Are you? Learn more at xitavosoybeanseed.com. Always read and follow label directions.
So, Mary, you mentioned Vorseed and PowerCore. Vorseed being that's the rootworm protection.
Yeah.
PowerCores, BT, and stuff. You didn't mention the corn earworm protection. So, that's the south side. That's something we get worried about. But most of the viewers of this podcast are going to be in that, Midwest, I'm sure. So, explain a little. I get confused because you got PowerCore, you got PowerCore Enlist, Vorseed. I hate to think what the acronyms are going to be on the hybrids in 20 more years. Like what? But help me understand it, and so the growers and the viewers can understand what's going on as well.
Okay, so Vorseed Enlist has rootworm control in it. So that's going to be a great option for people in Illinois, Iowa, southern Wisconsin, southern Minnesota, Indiana, where we have had rootworm pressure. And so it kind of builds on Chrome, our Chrome products, which were a molecular stack of Herculex 1 and Herculex rootworm. And that's what really kind of brought us to that next level of yield. So that's going to give outstanding rootworm protection. It also has an RNAi component, which also reduces adult beetle emergence. So if you're in an area that is really heavy rootworm pressure, you might be having considerable adult beetle feeding, and that's impacting silking and pollination. And so that RNAi really tremendously decreases adult beetle emergence. So PowerCore Enlist is going to have those above ground traits for European corn borer, fall armyworm, Southwest corn borer, and kind of a little bit of activity on black cutworm as well. And then there's PowerCore Ultra Enlist that also has that Leptra trait that is going to be better on corn earworm.
Well, that's something, Dowdy talks about having a crop to sell.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I don't want to say funny, but if we can keep the corn earworms out, we have better grain quality to sell. And then also we have more grain because, the worm gets the hole, eats a few kernels, but then we're on the East Coast, we get this migration flock of blackbirds. And it must be something that they can sense that worm in that ear. So then they poking in there, they find that worm, and then it's like now they got a buffet. They not only have meat, they get vegetable too. So now they're eating corn and maybe eating the worm still there, but then we get damage. And then if we get a wet period, now we got some grain quality problems. So that's why I mentioned when you talk about above ground protection. I get the cutworms, I get the corn borers, but for us, corn earworm is a prevalent problem. And Dowdy dealt with that tremendously when he was raising some sweet corn, didn't you, Dowdy?
Oh yeah, sweet corn is just the American public does not want to eat anything that they think is genetically modified. And in sweet corn world, there are ways to help control some of the worm pressure, but it's hard to sell it because the buyers, obviously it's taboo. But if the general public knew that we sprayed napalm out there 20 times trying to control the worms, ignorance is bliss, right? They don't worry about what they don't know. But I will put in a wish list, Miss Mary. If you got any control over Pioneer in the future, create a gene or something that kills stink bugs.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
That's the next one, because there's a lot of alpha toxin. I mean, I sit on the Corn Commission, and I know we funded a lot of research that has proven that a lot of the sources of, alpha toxin, and that initial inception of where that penetration point is by a stink bug is where obviously that alpha toxin starts, and it's a problem. And alpha toxin is a big deal. It's a big deal to myself when I need to sell corn. It's a big issue from Kansas and the southern half of the United States for sure. But come up, and there's enough of it. David and I go out enough times. I remember going in Virginia, and we were in one guy's field, and we were helping him grade how well he was doing with combine harvest. And he stops the combine, and I said, "Man, you're doing a really good job behind the combine. Why do you do that? Why are you taking so much time not to walk grain out the back of the combine?" And he says, "Because, man, that's bushels. Two kernels per square foot's a bushel, and that's, you multiply that times $4, $5, $6, and that adds up quick." I said, "Okay, now let's walk to the front of the combine." And we stripped back, 20, 30, 40 years of corn, and you could see 12 to 20 hits per year of stink bug damage.
Oh man.
And I said, so if 2 kernels per square foot's imported back here, and you got 20 kernels per year, I said, let's do a little math. And his agronomist speaks up and said, "I told him he needed to spray them stink bugs." So at the end of the day, it'd be great, because there's a lot of people that think that stink bugs aren't a problem. We've been in fields where people didn't know what a stink bug looked like. Correct, David?
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's the next enemy. If you could figure out a way to control that piece of it, that would be great too.
Yep, I agree. That is a pest that, as my career has gone on, when I first started it, yeah, every now and then we'd see a stink bug in the field, and now it seems like we see them all the time. So I'm not an entomologist, but I will pass that on to our people, that this is one of the emerging pests we got.
Yeah, well, I always like showing when somebody doesn't know what it is and I find one, I like to reinforce why they call it a stink bug, because I'm gonna squeeze it and get them to smell it. So they remember it from then on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, if they have an alpha toxin problem and it can be traced back to a stink bug, they won't forget that either. I've seen it contaminate a whole bin, and with the ethanol and the end users, with the high standards that they have, man, it is a pervasive, consistent problem. So having something else besides you make an application, there's no residual insecticide out there that does any good. It's a contact killer only. And that's the problem, Miss Mary. And if there was a way to put that on the emphasis of what the future looks like on I know y'all done a really good job with rootworm. I know you've done a really good job with the Leptra and the technology to help with earworms, but that's the next enemy for sure.
Okay, that's good to know, and that's how we find out about what should be our next priority. I mean, talking to growers like you, and we have a group that kind of maintains our pest maps and everything, and we get together on a fairly regular basis to update these. That, is this still the problem that it always has been, or what's the new and emerging one that we really need to start looking at? So that's how we find that out.
Yes, ma'am. Endless corn. I want to know more, because it is a problem. I'm a guy that likes to do things differently. We've done several different things with intercropping, etc. Being able to control weeds, having a different option, another tool in the toolbox. Would you mind talking about endless corn and where it's headed, what the future is, and how Pioneer may be leading that path?
Sure. So all the Vorseed and Power Core hybrids that I mentioned before are all Enlist enabled. So we can use Enlist over the top. I should know the exact specifications of the label off the top of my head, but I'm sorry I don't. I think that it gives us a lot of flexibility. So where we're at in Northwest Indiana, we have a weed called burr cucumber. that can just take over an entire field. And one of the ways we have managed that is spraying 2,4-D at post dent, just to kill the vine so that you can get a combine through there. Now that we have enlist enabled corn, that gives us an option of using a safe and 2,4-D earlier in the season. And I think it gives us another tool in the toolbox. It gives us options for burn down to really start clean and keep the crop clean. And I think this is going to be something that maybe we don't go out on every single acre with enlist, but we've got it, like you said, as a tool, and it's in those tank mixes that we put out.
Any problems with the brittle snap or any of those things with, because that's been traditional. A lot of people have sprayed 2,4-D over the top for years. Are we taking some of that out of it so that they don't have the wind susceptibility by this enlist tolerance? And one thing that David and I see all the time, and we trace it back to herbicides, is buggy whipping. We see buggy whipping all the time. It's not hard to point out in people's fields. A lot of it we think is group 15 susceptibility. I mean, obviously we cannot control the weather. We cannot control that rapid cool down after it's been warm, or rapid warm up after it's been cold. The plant starts to rapidly grow. We get it. But that's another focal point, in my opinion, that we need to think about. How do we prevent that? Because when you talk about uniformity of emergence, Miss Mary, a lot of that is related to, planter issues, things like this. But I've also seen where buggy whipping occurs and the plants don't come out of the buggy whipping at the same time from one plant to the next. And it almost mirrors poor emergence, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And had I not had a flag test out there, knowing that we had simultaneous or consistent emergence, I would have blamed the planter. But because I had a flag test out there, and then I start looking further, and I know that there was a weather pattern or maybe even herbicides. So that would be the next thing. How do we get some group 15 protection to prevent the buggy whipping? But then, do you see buggy whipping from enlist when it's sprayed? That would be my next question. Are we seeing not only the stalk issues, the brittle snap, but do we also see the buggy whipping phenomenon from that?
No, we don't. That's one of the great things about the enlist enabled technologies. We don't see that buggy whipping. We don't see the brittle of the stalk. So that's what makes it a great option to use. You've probably heard Pioneer people all saying yield protection flexibility, because those are the three things that Vorseed and PowerCore bring. But yeah, that protection from pests, and then that flexibility of being able to use 2,4-D, use enlist as a tool in your weed control.
Well, Miss Mary, I know you obviously have some things that you probably want to talk about, and I know we've probably been random and all over the board about hot topics for myself and David, the things that we see in the growers' fields or on our own farms. What else should we be looking for that Pioneers, no pun intended, pioneering the way on in the future? What else should we be looking for that you guys are excited about?
We have a couple of tools that I'm really excited about. This fungicide timing tool that we talked about a little bit before. Like I said, so it's based on a crop model and a weather model, just kind of modeling how many hours of free water we have on the leaf and what the weather's doing. And I think that has the potential to really help a lot of people do better on their fungicide application. It gains you that 5 to 7 days before you can visually see a lesion on the plant. And so you are protecting your photosynthetic material and not losing any of it. That's one of the things that I am really excited about. And as we add more diseases to that model, I think that's just going to become more and more useful. My team works with the Granular Insights platform, And we've got a lot of kind of individual in-season monitoring for our fields that really keep you up on what the disease risks are, where we are at GDUs weather-wise, and lets you really manage your crop more closely when it comes to any applications. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the new products coming out that are really season-long control. It's like you guys said earlier, you got to check that first box and get the crop up uniformly and have a great stand establishment. We're having pretty good yields in Northwest Indiana this year. Even though we were dry late in the season, we had a really nice spring. We had a nice dry spring, and the crop came up really uniformly. We had probably our best spring we've had in about 5 years. So making sure that we have products that can emerge even when we don't have those perfect emergence conditions, and then keep that late season plant health. That I think that's really going to bring a lot for customers. So we're always really excited about the new genetics that we have coming out. We're excited about our tools. There's a lot of stuff going on. I work a little bit with the biologicals team. They have really exciting stuff coming out. So it's a really exciting time to be in agronomy.
Miss Mary, it's been our great pleasure to have you here. And it's great having Pioneer as part of our network that we obviously David has mentioned Jeff Schussler, and back when Dan, used to be with you guys on the soybean side. There's a lot of good agronomists that I have had great interaction over my years with Pioneer. So thank you for being a part of it. Thanks for being a sponsor for Breaking Barriers. And David, no further ado, I'll let you send this off.
Well, Ms. Mary, I know, I don't know how people can reach out to them, but other than get involved with their local Pioneer rep. But Dowdy is listening, but we're going to plug his ears up. What's the next new hybrid that I need to be looking at? That's what
Oh boy, I a 13777. I love that hybrid. As for the stuff coming out this year, we actually have those meetings coming up early December where they give us the new names of all the new products. I don't get to be quite as involved in the hybrid advancement process as I used to be when I was a product agronomist. But yeah, right now 13777 I think is an awesome hybrid.
Yeah, well, it is a good one, but for us, there's some that are outdo that one. So y'all just keep up the good work, and that relationship both Dowdy and I have had with Pioneer for a while. Let's let it continue because y'all launch new stuff. We want to try it and have success. So thanks, Ms. Mary, for being part of today's show. And
you're very welcome. Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Yeah. And, we didn't cover all the topics you wanted, so maybe we'll have to get you back on another time.
You bet.
Well, Dowdy,
Mary.
It's always a good pleasure to be on with you, Dowdy, and tell them you want a good sweet tea.
There you go. I'll do that. I'm going to visit Chick-fil-A shortly. So take care, Miss Mary. God bless you. And David, always good to see you, sir, and we'll talk soon.
Yep. May all the farmers bless the seeds that they sow and be safe during the rest of this harvest season. So thank y'all.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon for another new episode of Breaking Barriers with R&D. Be sure to like and subscribe. And remember, all episodes are available on Farm Journal TV and anywhere podcasts are found.